Hello, happy live. I hope you guys all had a super long weekend, and I'm sure the kids are on the countdown. There's probably about a month left until school is done for the summer. Hopefully we can get some warmer weather instead of this up and down mumbo jumbo we have been experiencing. I'm going to do my normal today, which is answer some of your guys' questions that have come in throughout the week and go over some happy news as well as some real estate updates, okay? So feel free to ask any questions in the chat. Otherwise, I will just answer questions that have come in throughout the week. Hopefully you guys are all amazing, having a super short work week. So the first question comes from Marg from Alcona. So Marg from Alcona said, I have a new build to be completed in October 2022, but I keep hearing of delays. How do I know when to list my home? Thank you, Marg, for asking. So it's been, to be honest, a really long time since I bought a new home, but from my understanding, I believe they can only delay it so many times, and they always have to give you at least 90 days notice. And then from the last time, for example, then they can't delay it past that unless they give you, dollar monetary value back. So at least you always have that 90-day notice. So that's good because obviously closing on average is 60 to 90 days. Hi, Terry Ann, how are you? And I can't see who else is there. I think it's Becky or something. Thank you guys for popping in. So you should have 90 days, right? So average closing is 60 to 90 days. So once they give you 90 days, whether it's October or gets pushed to next February or what have you, then you'll still have time. So if you're always ready, so don't say, okay, now they gave me 90 days notice. Now I have to fix my back fence. Now I have to redo my backsplash tile. Now I have to get new appliances. Now I have to do this, that, and the other. If you're just ready to go, then basically you're still fine because 60 to 90 days is the average. So it should time and span out well for you. So thank you for asking. And yeah, I would just wait till they give you the official time. Okay. So don't sell it now, for example, and then they delay it for 4 different times for 3 months each time, just because then you're going to be renting and it's going to be harder because not everybody wants short-term rentals. They usually want a year rental. So it's going to be hard to find somebody who will just rent to you for a short term. Okay. Thank you for asking. So I'm going to do just some happy news before real estate. Okay. So some people know I have a little sister from Big Brothers Big Sisters, and basically they got their biggest donation the other day. So they were on Bayfield, for example, in Barrie, but now I guess everybody kind of just works from home, and then they have their meetups with the kids and littles, as they call them, so the little sisters and little brothers and what have you. So they got 122.6 million, and it came from Jeff Bezos' ex-wife. So she gets like 4% basically profit of Amazon all the time. So she's given over $8 million in the past 2 years. So right before this 122.6 million she gave to Big Brothers Big Sisters, she gave 436 million to Habitat for Humanity. So 1 out of 3 kids surveyed since the pandemic said they don't have a positive role model in North America. So hopefully that can change with the 122.6 million she gave. So I like that. Next question comes from Christina and Zach in Barrie. So Christina and Zach said, we were in a rent-to-own situation and got screwed. We really have a sour taste in our mouth because of that, but don't think we're quite ready to get into the market. What would you suggest? Thank you, Christina and Zach, for asking. So to be honest, I've never been a fan of rent to own either. So basically people that do rent to own, the owners of it, not the renters. So the rent to own. So let's just say they want their rent to be $2,000, or not they want it. It was $2,000 a month, but they say, hey, we'll charge you $3,500 a month. Your extra $1,500 a month goes towards, paying towards your down payment towards this mortgage. But the problem with that is they say if at any point you miss, even if you're 2 days late or what have you, you forfeit all that stuff you gave to them. So you could have been doing rent to own for the past 4 years, and all that $1,500 every single month that you put in is now gone. So basically they want you to, not forfeit, but do you know what I mean? They want you to miss a payment. They want you to whatever. So they just get more money, more rent from you. So they're like, yeah, have really bad credit. Have, you jump around jobs a lot. Have this, have that. And because they want you to default on your mortgage. That was the word I was looking for, default. So supposedly only 2 to 3% of people that do rent to own actually end up buying the homes. And the rest of the time, the people just default, and then the landlords get that extra money. So I would suggest just waiting until you can actually buy and get into the market. So that would be my suggestion. I'm sorry you had a bad, past experience with that, but that would be my suggestion. So just wait till you can actually get in. Thank you for asking. Next thing was a new poll from 1,000 parents. And so basically it's done since COVID. So 84% said they would rather have their kids show some form of kindness than have good grades, which obviously back in the day was all about like report cards. So that was neat that it's changed just to kindness since COVID. And 9 out of 10 parents said that they their children display gratitude when something kind is done to them, which was great. And 73% of parents said they were concerned about their kids and relationships with others, just because obviously they haven't been around people as much since COVID. And 69% of parents said that they actively try and help their kids have strong relationships with friends and maintain them. And more than 50% said that they reward their kids for kindness and acts of basically, not to say gratitude, but just being grateful. So next question comes from Sandra and Mike from Thornton. So Sandra and Mike, one more thing till we get to real estate, okay? Sandra and Mike in Thornton said, we've seen homes sitting longer recently, and we like a home out east, but we're afraid it won't be available by the time we sell ours. Thank you, Sandra and Mike, for asking. Obviously, that is a possibility. So if you don't have your house up on the market yet, you don't have an offer and so forth. I don't know what the market is doing out east as much, obviously, as here. So what you could try to do is an SPP, which means sale of purchaser's property. So you could try to get a conditional on that. So then you have that condition here. However, it's not very common here either. So for somebody to do it out there might not be the most likely. But what you could do is, let's just say you have a realtor and the realtor shows you, hey, these are what the homes around you, assuming you live in Thornton, because that's where you said you were from. So let's just say they tell you, hey, the homes around you are all $875 to $950. I'm just making that number up. Let's just say they're $875 to $950. If you were basing your numbers off buying that house for 1.4 out east, then obviously that doesn't make sense. But if you base them off of that, I would even go off of low end, because I like to be more on the low side, you know, I'd more cautious. So if it's $875 to $9, I would probably go off of 800. So if you're like, hey, let's go off of worst case 800, you know, what does that mean we can buy out there? So then you know, okay, hey, we're not out to lunch thinking we want 1.4 for our place, so at least you know. And if you do a longer closing date, then that gives you lots of time to sell yours, okay? Thank you for asking. Oh, hello. How's everybody? Hi, Margie. Hi, Patty. How are you? Okay, so I think I have one more thing. Oh, yeah, one more thing before real estate. So what will you do with your money before you pass away? So there was a multimillionaire from Canada. Let me find his name. Keith Owen. He was from Ottawa. And basically served in the military for years. He found out that he had terminal cancer, and he had just over $3 million. And he actually gave it to a private conservatory, a volunteer conservatory, and he wanted daffodils planted. Don't have a green thumb, so I was making sure it was the right flower. Daffodils planted, so they planted over 153,000 daffodils, and obviously they keep coming up every year because he passed a few years ago, and it was done at over 50 sites. So I don't know, I just like, there's my dog in the background. I just like not always, you know, awful news, which is what we can see if we ever want to go on any news channel. So I just like happy things. So he just wanted flowers to come up year after year and help in maybe somebody's gloomy day. So I like that. So next thing is real estate. Again, if you guys have any questions on real estate or anything, feel free to write it in the chat. Otherwise, I'm just going to say whatever I was planning on talking about, okay? Okay. So I've said in the past, but there was just another study that showed on average, the average sales price in Canada versus the average sales price in the United States. It's almost double in Canada what it is to live in the United States, which I've said before that 9 out of 10 almost people, basically of our clients, have been leaving, not necessarily going to the States. A lot have been going out east, and some have been going to Calgary, etc. And that way, we haven't really had anybody going elsewhere. I think we had one go to Yukon, and we did have like 4 or 5 go to the States. But so it's almost double Canada's prices versus the States, okay? So there was an article done recently, and they said, hey, can you still basically get a home in Ontario for less than $200,000? And because last week I talked about a place that was 10 and a half hours north of Barrie, and their sales price, I forget, was like $780 or something like that. So I was like, where can you actually get $200,000? Because I'm curious, because I don't know of anywhere that's $200,000 or $250,000. I forget what it said. They had a bunch around that $250,000 range. So basically in all of Ontario, there were only 12 properties that were under $250,000. And basically the long and the short of the article was they all needed a lot of work, and that you should leave the province if that is your price point, or save, which sounds awful, but it's just doesn't exist anymore. So the main places they said people were going was the Atlantic and the prairies, which is basically what we've seen as well. More to the Atlantic, but some to prairies. So whether you have $200,000 or $2 million, etc., they sometimes say like, hey, these are the most clicked on homes that are for sale. So the most clicked on homes last week. So the number one home was in Ottawa. It wasn't like super big. It was 3 bedrooms, 3.5 bathrooms. It wasn't a prestigious area, and it had a living room that was the shape of an octagon. I don't know. I think that would be hard to place furniture, but anyways, they pointed it as a plus. It's listed for $2.3 million. It had the most clicks on it. The second most clicks, again, I'm all over the place with stuff I say, so I'll tell you guys facts locally, across Canada, in Ontario, etc. So just, you'll probably get used to me if you are not already. So the next place most clicked on listing in Canada, actually in Ontario, not Canada, was in Toronto, and it was on St. John's Road, and it was basically out of a horror movie, and there was black mold everywhere, and it literally looked like, I don't know, I don't watch those scary Ring movies, but it looks like it was filmed there. And it sold for $2.165, and it was in the Junction in Toronto, and it had the second most clicks. So we went from a very pretty house in Ottawa to a horror home in Toronto. The third home was also more like a horror home, and it was in Guelph. I spoke about it 2 weeks ago because of the amount of offers it had. It sold for $760, was full of black mold, and not like horror movie as in like century home, but definitely looked like some not so nice things had gone on there. It had the third most clicks in Ontario last week. The fourth most clicks was Back to Pretty in Markham. So there was a property there full of like chandelier lights and I don't know, just pretty furniture, etc. It was listed for $3.199. And then we went to Toronto. So Back to Pretty again. There was a 6-bedroom, 11-bathroom, 14-car garage home. And maybe people, you know, just like to browse like, ooh, what's the most expensive listing in Toronto right now, or on realtor.ca right now, or what have you. So it comes fully furnished, and it should, because it's listed for $29.8 million, which is crazy. And then the 6th most clicked on home last week was in Yorkville, Toronto. It was 24-foot ceilings, and it was listed just over $6 million at 6.25. Super pretty. But anyways, that's my randomness on that. So a lot of people have been asking, is it a buyer's market now? So it's not a buyer's market now, but it has definitely shifted since January and February. So last night, for example, we had a home listed and had 9 offers. So normally in January or February, if we had a home listed and it had 9 offers, 9 would be firm, unconditional, etc. This one, only 4 of them were firm and unconditional, and 1 was even an SPP, which again is sale of purchaser's property. So that's just showing that the market has changed, but it is, you know, still strong. It's just a bit different. So usually if people wanted 800 before, they list 599. Now if they want 800, a lot of people just list like 829, 819. My dog is chewing something loud. I apologize. So that has kind of been the shift. Also, we've had more people come in with conditions. So they're saying, hey, here's, you know, you've been listed 4 days. Here's our offer, you know, $35,000 under asking, and we want 7 days for finance and inspection, which you would have been laughed at in the past 2 years. And now people are actually considering it. So that is a change. So some people, for example, they bought like a year ago, and, you know, they bought a year ago, but maybe they had to do some things to their home or what have you. And maybe they bought a year ago for like 1.2. Now it's appraising at, for example, $1,080,000. And there's different options. So they could either have private money to get the extra, because the banks are saying, hey, it's not appraising at the 1.2. So you need to come up with the extra. So if they have the extra, that's great, whether they have it, you know, already in their bank account or they get it from a private lender. But some of the buyers are actually asking the sellers, hey, will you reduce the price by that amount? So that is kind of something that's going on right now. It's, you know, some people, it happened, to be honest, in 2017. So they might have bought, you know, January, February, but closed in February, March, etc. But some were really long. But when it's really long, they appraised it back then, but they're also appraising it now. And obviously appraisals now are a bit different than they were back then. So that's kind of more what's going on right now. There has been some price drops in the city, and he's so loud. Some price drops in different cities. So, for example, Kitchener-Waterloo, it went down 8.4%. London went down 5%. Toronto went down 2.7%. Ottawa, these next places had a bit of a gain. So it was just a minor gain, because I'm sure you remember in the past, sometimes I was like 38%, 42%, 36%, 31%, etc. So Ottawa only gained 0.1%. Vancouver only gained 1%. Calgary gained 1.6%, and Montreal gained 2.1%. But there's also another one that was down, which is Barrie, which was 2.1%. The thing about that is that those numbers are April 2021 versus March 2021, okay? So it happens every year because a lot of people want to move the last week of June, the first 3 weeks of July, so there's just more inventory. So instead of having a few homes for sale, less than 12, there's hundreds and hundreds and sometimes even thousands of homes for sale, so there's just way more inventory. So there's often, the average sales price is down a little bit. But if we actually look, so yes, it was down 2.1% from April 2021 from March 2021 in Simcoe County. But if we look at the average sales price in all of Simcoe County, it was up 17%, okay? So it was up to $907,891. I'm going to take that thing away from my dog because it's bothering me. It was up to $907,891, which again is up 17%. So yes, it's down 2.1% from last month. However, it's up 17% from last year, okay? Is there really a situation with buyer remorse right now, or is that just reporters making? There is some buyer's remorse, Terry. So some people, it's again happened in 2017. I'm going to, move this from my dog. Sorry, my dog is chewing on this. Something that he got out of the recycling container. It was bothering me. So yeah, so some buyers are like, hey, we paid, like I said, let's just use that example from before, 1.2 for your place, and now we know it's worth $1,080,000, and now we, have to get a private mortgage, or we have to get private funds, from like a loan shark or something for 7%, 8%, 10%, etc. So, that obviously hurts them, right? They don't necessarily have the money in their bank account and so forth, so some of them are feeling that. Not all banks are doing second appraisals. Some don't even do a first appraisal. So, and some are just saying, hey, we were going to give it to you for 25 years. Now we're going to give it to you for 30 years, stretch it out, blah, 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 because, we found it appraised lower. So they'll still keep the payment the same for them, but now because it appraised lower or what have you. So in 2017, to be honest, there was people backing out. There was a lot of foreign buyers. And in 2017, I remember people saying like, come find me kind of thing. And it was like, how are you going to sue these people and so forth? If you had to resell it right now for $1,080,000, you lost that $120,000. How are you going to find these people that live in Russia or live in China or live wherever they live? How are you going to find them to sue them? Basically was what was happening in 2017. But honestly, it wasn't a lot. Like that was just like 4 or 5 people at the brokerage I was at the time. And there was maybe, 400 agents at that brokerage. It wasn't like 9 out of 10. Still majority of people were buying. And also if those people did walk, they lose their deposit. So majority of these people, for example, in our 9 offers last night, the cheapest deposit was $15,000 all the way up to $200,000, right? So you have like $100,000 that still they're walking away from, that they're losing, etc., that can go towards damages, etc. It does have to be released from a judge. It can't just randomly go back to you that day. It does have to be court, the court says, okay, yeah, it can go to you or it can go to you, etc. So there is some buyer's remorse, Tyrion, but most people are just, it's not. So in February, you could have heard like, hey, my neighbor sold for $300,000 over asking, and now my neighbors got $10,000 under asking. But your neighbors before, for example, not necessarily your neighbors, but they listed $899, sold 1.2, for example. But now they're just listing 1.189 and getting 1.17 or 1.16 or what have you. Like it's still closer. It's not. It's a very small adjustment. People are just listing closer to what they want. Okay. Sorry for the roundabout stuff, but that answers that hopefully for you. So all economists basically are saying different. Some are saying there will be a slight dip. Some are saying there will be a large dip, but basically they're saying it all depends on how many people are in hot water by the time their mortgage renews, because a lot of people just do a year renewal. So if they did a year and their year's coming up, some people obviously are in 5-year mortgages, etc. But a lot of people, one, there's over a third of Canadians that don't even have a mortgage, and two, a lot of people got pre-qualified with that stress test. So I don't know if you guys remember that stress test, but the stress test pre-qualified people 2% higher. So if the rate was 2.2, they had to get appraised at 4.2 to see if their debt to service made sense. So even if they do have to pay a bit more, their, debt to service ratio, their jobs and blah, blah covers it. Okay. So it's not like crazy. Obviously, yes, it is, fear mongering or whatever. And for people to say, how I said, yes, Barrie went down 2.1%. They just want to say that down 2.1%, down this, down that, whatever, but they don't say year over year up 17% or up 29% or up 23% or whatever. They obviously just like to say the bad stuff. Okay. So yes, it's not crazy like they're saying, but there is definitely still an adjustment. Okay. What else? Oh yeah, so the last 3 deals we did, so there are still bidding wars going on. It is usually more in the lower priced homes. So the last 3 ones we did, homes that we sold, one was 180,000 over asking, one was 75,000 over asking, and one was 50,000 over asking. So it's still happening. But it is just like I said, some people are putting conditions that they never were before. Some people are putting condition on the sale of their home, which we haven't seen in a super long time. So it's just something that's a bit different. And again, people are altering their way of buying. And also they know before they were just like, just get me a house. I don't care what it is. There's no inventory. But now they're like, hey, let's just wait till the perfect house comes up, because now we're not rushed as much, because now we know there's more inventory. We know constantly there's inventory coming on every week. So that's kind of the change with that. And I'll tell you later who has backed out of the market a bit, which has affected things. Okay. Let's see. So across Canada, 12.6% less homes sold last week. But a lot of people have said that they're sitting by the sidelines because they want to see with the interest raises and, going up and saying that's going to go up again in June and so forth. Some people are just like, hey, let's just sit on the sidelines and see what happens when the interest rates go up. And some people are like, hey, I'm just priced out of the market now because of that slight raise. I was so close on my debt to service ratio. Now I really can't buy it all. So some people are just sitting on the sidelines anyways, and some are forced to the sidelines. But that could have to do with the 12.6% less people that bought homes in Canada last week. Okay. So the main people that they think are going to back out of this market is not actually first-time buyers, which a lot of people think. The main people they think that are going to back out are investors. So investors, one, they have to jump through more hoops. And then two, it's just not making as much sense for them. So by the time they pay their mortgage, by the time they pay their taxes, by the time they pay their, let's just say, lawn maintenance, snow maintenance, etc., their return isn't as good. So they are often going to other countries, other provinces, etc., to invest. Some are going to stock market, some are going to whatever. So it's actually the investors that have stepped back a bit, not the first-time buyers, which I found interesting because most people obviously think it's the first-time buyers that are stepping back. There's also talks of a lot of condos coming into the market. So a lot of people, when, things happen, they often buy cheaper homes. So they're like, hey, if there is, a correction to the market, we don't want to be in a house. Let's just say they bought a house for 2.1 or 2.2 million, 2.1 or 2.2, and now it's only worth 1.6 or 1.7 because they're saying, some economists are saying a 20% increase or decrease, right? So if, for example, they say, hey, I'm just in a condo, so if there is an actual adjustment, I don't lose as much because I'm in a cheaper price property. So a lot of condos were bought. The thing is, again, a lot just went into for a 1-year mortgage. So then they're coming up. So there's going to be a lot that then either can't afford their monthly payments after that year, or their debt to service ratio doesn't make sense, or what have you. So they think there's going to be a lot of condos that come on, more specifically Toronto than Barrie, for example. But they think a lot of condos are going to come on as the summer, rolls on, and into the fall. There's going to be a lot of condos coming on the market, which will dip the condo market a little bit. I can see my dog, Allison. He's currently down at my feet, but that's because I took this thing he was eating away from him. So he's mad at me now. Okay, what else? So Bank of Canada, as you guys probably know, went from 0.25 to 1% since March of this year, and it is expected to go up again in June. There's multiple times throughout the year that they're allowed to go up. or that they can go up. Doesn't mean they are always going up every single time that they announce it, but they can. It is expected to go up to 3% in the next year, okay? So just as an FYI. What else was I going to say? So economists are saying basically our market was kind of lasting through everything. They're like, it's a pandemic and it's still going up. It's still going up. But now they're saying it's actually affecting it. So they're saying whether it's a combination of the war or energy crisis or interest rates or people just being sick of bidding wars, etc., is now finally like not so crazy. So that's majority of economists. Again, they're all different. Some are saying it's going to have a little blip like 2017. Some are saying it's just going to go flatline like 2008, 2009, and others are saying it's going to be like the early 90s. So it just depends which one you read and which one you believe, but they all say different. And obviously with the election in a week, that will affect things as well, which I will talk about in a little bit too. What else was I going to say? Oh yeah, what they think, by the way, the Bank of Canada's rate increase is going to go up in June is 0.25 to 0.5. Which is 25 to 50 basis points. But if, for example, the rate right now is 1, it's either going to go to 1.25 or 1.5, okay? So yeah, like I said, with elections, so there's 1 week till election. So last week I spoke a lot about it, like NDP is saying this, liberals are saying this, conservatives are saying this, and so forth and so forth. But basically everybody's saying that they're going to build 1.5 million homes in the next 10 years. But the liberals, so they're saying this use it or lose it thing. So basically they're trying to avoid, let's just say, speculators. They say like, hey, we bought this 100 acres, we're just going to sit on it for 20 years, then resell it. So they're saying, hey, you're either going to be taxed on it, you either have to sell it, or you have to build on it. They're saying you can't just sit on it. Well, you can if you pay the tax. And I mean, if they have the money, obviously they'll just pay the tax, but that is something that they're trying to do. They're also trying to do something, I don't know, they haven't said where these properties are, but supposedly they have these underused government properties that they want to turn into homes, and they want to sell only to first-time buyers, not to anybody else. Where these properties are and if that'll actually come to fruition, I have no idea, but that is something that they have said. Again, obviously elections are in like a week, so they're trying to pull out all the stops to get some votes. They're also talking about a 2% tax for urban properties. So not just vacant land, but 2% tax for urban properties if they are kept vacant. So again, let's just say somebody has a lot of money from somewhere else, Japan, etc., and they buy 4 properties here, but they're just sitting on it. They're saying you're going to be taxed 2% a year for that, okay? They also want to increase taxes, whether it's urban or not, if they're foreign buyers. Which they usually test it out first in Vancouver, then they do it here, okay? So supposedly, I'm not going to go through all of the things like last week, but supposedly right now, PC is in the lead with 34% and Liberals at 25%, and then NDPs are 23%, and Green Party is 8%. So Green Party doesn't often say as much as the other parties of what they're going to do, but they did say this week that they're going to allow homes. So let's just say it's zoned for a single family home. They're going to allow it to be a duplex, a triplex, or a fourplex, saying like, hey, we're going to be able to have more homes for people, etc., because you're not limited to this, you know, massive home and you can only have one family live in it and you get a fine or what have you if you rent it out to more people. So they're going to say, yeah, make it a fourplex, do whatever, because we need housing for people. So that's something that they have said. So I have said in the past about housing doubling in the past 2 years since the pandemic. And if we go further back, it has tripled almost everywhere in the last 10 years, which is crazy to think about that. I can't see all who's on there, but thank you guys for popping in. You guys can ask questions in here if you want. Otherwise, I'll just answer questions that have come in throughout the week. Next question is from Cheryl in Brecken. So Cheryl in Brecken, let me just go to her. Do you think it's unreasonable to put an offer on conditional of selling my house? I'm not comfortable without it. Thank you, Cheryl, for asking. So yeah, I did just speak about that a little bit ago. So that is either called an SBP or an SPP, so sale of buyer's property or sale of purchaser's property. And then to have that, you have to have an escape clause. So what that means is, let's just say they take it, they're not going to take it unless there's an escape clause. So an escape clause means, let's just say 24 hours, 48 hours, etc. So you still market your home for sale. And so let's just say you took this person's X dollars. $100,000. Obviously you can't buy anything for $100,000, but let's just say you got $100,000 from them, but they have to sell their house. And then somebody else says, hey, I'll give you $125,000, but I don't have to sell a house. So, and you want to take that. So these people, whatever the amount was that you had set in the agreement, 24 hours, 48 hours, etc., they have to firm up or back out, or you can sell it to these other people. It doesn't have to be a higher price. So if this was 100,000, these people could only be 90,000, but they don't have a house to sell. It doesn't have to be a higher price. You might just like their conditions better. They might have no conditions. They might have a higher deposit, etc. But these people have their foot in the door first, so you don't automatically just bump them and take these people. They still have the chance to firm up or to back out. Okay. So that's basically what that means. So you're welcome to put that in if you like, but I could just keep using it because it's fresh in my head because we did it last night. Of the 9 offers we had come in, 1 of the 9 had the sale of another home. So it just is really hard to take the sale of another home when there's 8 other properties that don't have the sale of a home, right? So it's just not going to put you in the strongest buying position. Obviously, I get your comfort level. I get not wanting to own 2 homes, etc., and feel like you don't want to pay 2 mortgages, but you also don't want to sell your home and then not find the perfect home and feel like you're homeless. So I totally get that. It is just a lot harder. So maybe certain markets, they will go for it. Or maybe if you have a really high price, let's just say the highest somebody offered was 8 and you offered 860, although you wouldn't know what their offer was because currently we have blind bidding. But let's just say you offered 860. They're like, hey, we might wait the month for her to sell her house because we'll get 60,000 extra. So they might go for it. But because we still have blind bidding, you're not going to know what the highest offer was anyways. That is something, by the way, on a side note, that the Liberals want to get rid of. So people know, okay, it's 800, it's 801, it's 802, it's 805, etc. But currently it is still blind bidding. And some places say not to take the blind bidding away because Australia, for example, their house prices skyrocketed when they took the blind bidding away. So a lot of economists say not to do that. What else do I have to chat about? I'm back into happy news. So there was a 28-year-old mom, and basically, to be honest, I'm going to actually skip just to questions because I know that I jump around a lot and normally do my happy news, but I'm just going to do questions right now, and then I'll do all the news at the end, okay? Trying something new. I'm going to do all the questions. So next question is from Brad in Penetanguishene. So Brad in Penetanguishene said, what if I sell my house for $700,000 and buy based off of that, and then the buyers can't get financing? So Brad, if that happened, for example, you can go after in litigation the person that was buying your home, the realtor that represented them, as well as the realtor's brokerage. And they do all have insurance and so forth, so you can go after them. So let's just say you only sell it for $600, you could go after them for that $100,000 difference. Let's just say you can't then buy your other home, you can go after them for damages of that. Or say you do have to buy the other home still because you're bound to it, and you had to get a private lender, you can go after them for those damages. Or say you have to live in a hotel for a month, you can go after them for those damages, etc. But there are some people that say you can't get blood from a stone. So let's just say they bought it for $700 and then they both lose their jobs or something like that. It's really hard to go after people, obviously, in court for that. But that is honestly so few and far between. Like I said, maybe 4 or 5 people in the whole brokerage that I worked at in 2017 had something like that happen. But I'm knocking, but you can't see down here, knock on wood, it's not happened to us. So it's not a common thing whatsoever. It's literally like 1 in 5,000 that you hear about something happening. It's not a common thing. So I wouldn't worry about that because it's not something that normally happens. But again, there are still ways that you can go after people if it does, okay? And you still have their deposit. So thank you for asking. Next question comes from Deb and Barry. So Deb and Barry said, would you suggest buying or selling first? So that's honestly a personal preference. So a lot of people, I said a little bit ago, they don't like selling first because then they're like, okay, I sell first, but then what if I don't find something I like and I'm homeless and what have you? But a lot of people like selling first because then they know, hey, this is how much money I have, this is how much down payment I have, and so forth, and they know that they can buy a home firm without saying conditional on the sale of their home, etc. So a lot of people do like that, and they put a longer closing date. Do not sell your house and put a 30-day closing date because then you probably will be homeless or living on your friend's couch, etc. So I wouldn't do it unless you have a long closing date. And then the people that buy firm, the thing about that is, let's just say you didn't get any research done, you didn't anything, and you think that your house is worth $1 million. you buy a house based off thinking that your house is worth $1 million, then you find out it's only worth 775, and now, you know, your financing is messed up and so forth and what have you. So I personally like selling first, or if you buy first, it's fine, but just make sure you've done your homework and you know how much approximately your home is worth, so you can gauge it off of that, so you're not just randomly picking a number in the dark, or your neighbor told you their house was worth 1.2 and yours is bigger than theirs if you don't actually know where they got their facts from. Okay, don't go off of like House Sigma or what have you. House Sigma is a great app. However, it'll say like the average, or Zillow or whatever, the average house in this area is this price. So let's just say it says the average house is 1.1. So you're like, oh, my house must be average. It's 1.1. However, you might be the only street of townhomes surrounded by all these mansions. Does not mean your house is worth 1.1 just because it said it is. So just make sure you do more research before then. Okay? Okay. So that's it for questions. So now I'm going back to happy news. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask. So I'm going back to 28-year-old mom. So basically she had a little daughter, and they said she has hydrocephalus, which is like increased pressure and fluid in the ventricles in the brain. And she was blind. By 8 months, they said she wasn't going to walk or talk, etc. And by 6, the hydrocephalus was gone. And at 7, she's, you know, talking, walking. She's like in the top percentage of her grade 2 class. So again, I always like happy news because we can hear sad news all the time. So I like that. And then, what was this? Oh yeah, time of year, obviously, that a lot of people have garage sales and stuff. So there was a gentleman, he bought at a garage sale a box of photos. So frames for on the wall, blah, blah. There's a frame behind my head. Etc. Bought all these pictures, and then heard that one was a Nova Scotia artist who had passed away and that she had kind of become famous. So he looked up all of the things he had bought and saw that a bunch were from her, and just one alone, which he had in his son's bedroom, sold for 350,000 Canadian. So that is a very good garage sale find, if you ask me. He bought the whole box, I forget, for like $15 or something like that. So anyways, I thought that was cool for that gentleman. And then there was somebody fixing a wrong. So obviously we know most people don't fix a wrong, or they just don't care and it's all about money. So there was this big oil executive, and he had all of these people working under him, like thousands of people. And somehow he came across that, you know, they were leaving all these job sites like really messy, really dirty, etc. And I don't know anything about oil wells, but supposedly there's over 2.1 million in the United States that have been left poorly. And I don't know, 7 million tons of methane gas comes out of it, and some of them are like right next to people's homes. So anyways, he's going back and like fixing one at a time. So I thought that was good. Instead of him being like, I'm imagining it's $1 billion business, but maybe it's only millions. Instead of him going after the money, he's just going back to fix all the wrongs. Maybe he feels like, you know, better karma, or leave a better footprint on the earth. So I like that. Anyways, that is all for me. I hope you guys have a super rest of your week. Thank you for popping in. Take care of yourselves, take care of one another, and have a great night.